Welcome into another edition of the Dynasty Dogs podcast. That is my dog's favorite podcast, and we have finally made it. My co-host Rich McAteer is here, and we are ecstatic to announce that the NFL season is finally here tonight. We have a game to talk about. Rich, how you doing?
Man, I thought it would never come. The 2024-2025 season is finally upon us. We gave out all our tags in our houses. Now it's time to get into some real foosball.
And it's finally time to see all the training camp buzz and preseason buzz and see if some of it is relevant, some of it is not relevant. And, it's put up or shut up time, thank God, because I couldn't deal with any more of the, articles about players on roster bubbles. And
so what you couldn't deal with is like July and August and June football.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to talk about. So let's just make this. We finally made it.
Yeah. That whole Imani Vidal's on the roster bubble thing. Might not make the team, and now he's the running back 3 on the team, and they cut everybody else. So that's perfect. Tonight we are going to go over some news like we normally do. We're going to preview the Kansas City and Baltimore game. Then we're going to talk about 3 games we're going to be looking forward to watching this weekend and why, and giving out our predictions for the end of season awards and Super Bowl winners. We're going to kind of do these episodes like we did last year, going over the previous games, going over the previous games, and talking about some future games, obviously going over Dynasty topics along the way, and adding in some further Dynasty discussion as we go along. So let's get into a little bit of the news. Obviously, I think we should start with the biggest one, and it's probably the scariest one of everything. Ricky Pearsall is put on the PUP because he was shot during a robbery attempt. Lucky for him, the bullet passed through his body completely without touching any vital organs, and he was somehow back at the practice facility the next day, which is one of the most insane things.
Yeah, he was shot in the chest, and it went through his back, I guess, obviously, and just missed everything by a 17-year-old kid over a Rolex, which I don't want to get into too far into that and give him the light that he doesn't deserve, but Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. Luckily, Ricky Pearsall ended up being okay, obviously, and it's crazy to think how he was coming out of or going into, I don't remember. An autograph signing, and that happens. That's unfortunate. And, it starts his rookie season off on a really, tough note. Hopefully he'll be back soon, and, prayers up for him, because that's a scary fucking situation, man. It really is.
Yeah, you're going to do something nice, and then some dickhead pops out of the bushes for your $20,000 watch that is obviously, well documented and well, serial numbers and all that. So, what the fuck are you going to do with the thing anyway?
Right. But glad he's all right.
Kids are dumb.
Let's get into some less serious news. Russell Wilson today reported that he has a calf injury, and he's now questionable for this week's game. The wheels of Russell Wilson are always turning, I guess.
God, this guy's he's such a nerd. I can't stand this dude anymore. It's just go home.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that passing game. I feel pretty confident for a few of the pass catchers, no matter who really is in. But I would like to know who the quarterback is, week to week.
Yeah.
Sure. There was some question on whether Justin Fields would get the nod. Obviously, Russ got it. Now he's got a calf injury. Is he a little upset that it was more of a competition than he thought? And now he's
Yeah, what is he pulling some kind of move, or?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's legitimate. We don't know. Obviously, we'll never know. We're not. Neither one of us are physical therapists or anything like that, or physical fitness guys for that matter. The only thing we're fitting is pizza in our mouths.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens with him. But Jamar Chase is back at practice because he caused a bit of a stir this week.
This is another, bullshit. Dude, you have 2 years left on the deal. Go in and play. Dude, pull this bullshit next season.
I agree with you. I think his argument was that the guys in his draft class the Devontae Smith, the Jalen Waddle, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, they all got paid. So it was like, okay, well, where's my payday? I feel like I'm better or on par with all of these guys. Obviously, I think Jamar Chase is better than all of those guys. No, St. Brown. Sorry, I
don't think he's
that.
better. Yeah.
I don't think he's better than St. Brown, but still, I think he still deserves to be paid like those wide receivers. The Bengals have been really stingy with paying wide receivers, it seems like. So maybe he did have a little bit of a gripe. Who knows? But again, it's good to see him back on the field for our fantasy football rosters.
It seems like a team's worst nightmare. It's like your number one and your number two are both bitching about getting paid. It's like, oh my God.
And your number one quarterback can't stay healthy, and your offensive line is questionable at best. I mean, it should be improved, but we'll see. What do you think of Chase? I think we talked about it last week. Where is he off the top of your head in your fantasy rankings? Because I dropped him a little
Probably like 5.
I actually have him at 6 or 7, I believe.
Let me see. Yeah, I think it'll be Lamb, Hill.
Oh, you're moving Hill all the way back up, I guess, after that extension for your dynasty.
Yeah, because it was like
that is
he
fair.
was like done in like a year or whatever. What is it? Is he 28 or 29?
Yeah, he was allegedly done after this season, but then he signed.
Yeah, so it's like I was like, I'm not gonna. Yeah, like that kind of solidified it that I'd be okay with taking him. So would it be Lamb, Hill, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, and then Chase? I would say.
For me right now, I didn't include Tyreek Hill on that. I have him at like 8, I think, but I could bump him up again now that I think about it some more. For me, it's Jefferson, Lamb, St. Brown, AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jamar Chase. And the reason for that is I think we talked about it last week, is the difference in fantasy points between the two, Jamar Chase and AJ Brown, is not that significant. It's only AJ Brown has outperformed Jamar Chase the past 2 seasons, and he's only 2.5 years older, I believe he is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting him at a value as opposed to Jamar Chase, who's a first, early second-round pick in your startups, and AJ Brown's a late third, mid-third at this point. I'm all aboard the AJ Brown train, man. I'm all aboard this Eagles offense, and I just wrote an article that should be coming out maybe tonight or tomorrow about one of the pass catchers on the Eagles. But I digress. That's a topic for a different discussion.
Had to get the plug there, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Might as well every now and again. Deshaun Watson says he feels fine with the low expectations for the Cleveland Browns, and
he must have got a massage.
I don't know how you can say you feel fine with low expectations.
Because he's just a crumb.
Yeah,
he is a crumb. He stinks, and he's a crumb.
I have a strange feeling Jameis Winston is eventually going to be the starter for the Cleveland Browns at some point this season.
Yeah, I think so too.
Him getting hurt again, or him being like, I don't really feel like doing this. You know.
And then after that, do you think they cut bait, or do they pull what the Eagles did with Carson?
They have to do something because that contract is absurd.
Yeah, well, I wonder what the dead money would be, but like it's like he's handcuffing your team. That might go down as one of the worst trades and contracts in history.
It's definitely got to be like a number one. Besides like the Mets with what's his name, Bobby Bonilla, who they're still paying. And he's been retired.
Well, yeah, right.
But in the NFL, this is probably the worst one, and this should be the worst.
I wonder what they got. What did they get for him? Do you know? Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head.
I'm gonna look. But
they need to make a move. It's weird that the offense looked a bit better with Joe Flacco at the helm last year when he took over, as opposed to Deshaun Watson. I think we've talked about it a million times. I think people pray that Deshaun Watson hits to what he was 5-6 years ago, and it's just not happening. The dude's a crumb, like you mentioned. I mean, whether, keeping that off topic, he just hasn't been the same football player.
Right.
5 or 6 years. He's not as dynamic. His decision making is awful. You can watch those videos all day long.
Right. So it has here Yeah, I got it. It says at 2022 first, which was 13th, 2022 fourth, which was 104, 2023 first, which is 12th, 2023 third, which is 73, 2024 first, which is 23, and 2024 fourth, which is 123, which this, according to Google, says, in case you're accounting, this is either directly or indirectly Kenyon Green, John Michie III, Christian Harris, Thomas Booker, Damian Pierce, Will Anderson, Caleb Bullock, Tank Dell, Kamir Lassiter, Jamal Hill, Cade Stolliver, and a 2025 second round pick, courtesy of the Vikings, to the Houston, which sent Deshaun Watson to the Browns.
To quote
Jesus Christ.
To quote the great Joe Exotic, I'm never going to financially recover from this, is what the Cleveland Browns are saying right now. That is pretty bad. I mean, some of those draft picks are misses.
Right, but
some of them are to be determined. But
Tank Dell, and you already win with Will Anderson. You already win with Tank Dell.
And Lassiter can play. He's a corner. It'll be interesting to see how that looks. But yeah, it just on paper looks really, really, really bad.
Right.
Next bit of news. Raheem Morris is more excited than concerned for Christian Kirk. You know, obviously Kirk is coming off that Achilles injury. And I honestly think I kind of agree with him because this offense could be really good. And this team in general, they've made some really nice moves this offseason. Outside of getting Kirk, you know, they traded for Matthew Judon. They signed Justin Simmons, who's another good corner. It's going to be a very interesting team. You know, we're going to talk about.
I thought you said you got me all fucked up. I think you said Christian Kirk, so I'm sitting here thinking of the.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, wait a second.
If I did, I'm sorry, but we're going to talk about our Super Bowl prediction later. But one of the teams that doesn't make the Super Bowl, I think, makes the NFC Championship game as a hot take is the Atlanta Falcons. I think that team could be really, really good if Kirk can stay healthy. And that's why there's reason to be excited about that.
Yeah, I hope. Well, there's already reports, and then I guess Kyle Pitts kind of came back and was like, they're essentially not true that Kyle Pitts was hurt. He was limited in practice, but he came out and said that he only played 2 less snaps in practice. So I guess that's not a big deal. People are just starting to create a tizzy for no reason.
It's the off season. It's the off season, and we're about 2.5 hours away from it finally being over the off season portion of this.
Yeah,
thank God.
Thankfully. Yeah, I think I picked them to win the division. Honestly, I forget what I put in a bet earlier this year to see who I thought would win the division, and I think I took the Falcons, which is with the addition of Judon and Simmons and what's his name?
Jesse Bates.
Bates.
Yeah. AJ Terrell. They re-signed.
Yeah, their defense is looking all right. Darnell Mooney on the second wide receiver there isn't too bad.
They could have maybe addressed that.
I don't think he's bad though. He was good. He was all right in Chicago, but now because he had to be pretty much the guy in Chicago, I think. Now it's kind of he'll be behind London, who I'm still waiting to see from. People have London so like rocket high. I don't know who's but why? Like that's what I don't get. Like he hasn't done anything.
He doesn't, but if you're looking at what he could be, and that's like a Michael Pittman-esque type of wide receiver. Just looking at his profile, the way he plays, what he hasn't had is a quarterback. Desmond Ridder was god-awful. I think we can both agree with that.
Yeah.
And I could see a Michael Pittman type ceiling for him if all goes as planned, obviously.
So, like, for me, I have, like, London and Olave, like, almost the same just because they've played with crappy quarterbacks, and I'm waiting to see what they do. Like, they have this season, and then I'm like, okay, that's it.
That's fair. That is fair to say with this season. I would throw Garrett Wilson into that as well.
Yeah.
I think he's more polished than those two, but he's also in that same boat for me. But I will say, whether we think Derek Carr is good or not, he's not. He's substantially better than Desmond Ridder, right? I think that's fair to say. So I would give that a little bit more of a doubt to Drake London than I would Chris Olave.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. Again, I do think, he's got the Michael Pittman plus potential to him. He was a top 12 pick in the NFL draft. I think he was 10 or something like that. So it remains to be seen. It's all a crapshoot at this point.
Yeah.
Let's get into the next bit of news we have. Brian Callahan, coach of the Tennessee Titans, says Will Levis is ready for the moment after a productive offseason, and I love it. As you know, I've been a big Will Levis guy since coming out of college. You guys have busted my balls for it for 2 years, and I think you're starting to come around on Levis slightly. Not a whole lot, but slightly.
I wasn't completely bought in. I'm slightly bought in a little bit now.
I will say after watching this offense in the preseason, I do think they look a little bit better. There were some plays that I liked that maybe they didn't run as much when Mike Vrabel was there, which they're essentially like the same coach. So I probably could have just said there were some boot out passes that I liked from Will Levis, fake handoff, rolls right passes to the tight end. Those are really nice play calls, play designs by Brian Callahan. So I'm interested to see how they look. What do you think?
I think, he's definitely he's ascending, I think. And, especially with Calvin Ridley there, I think that's going to be a help because, your boy is made of glass. Treylon Burks, who's, I don't think, is he like number one water boy now? Or like, he even?
I think, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at their depth chart, he's behind Calvin Ridley on that depth chart.
Yeah.
I think it was DeAndre, Ridley, and Boyd in the slot, if I remember correctly, seeing it.
Okay. I forgot they had Boyd. He's like sneaky.
So that's exactly what I was about to say. Tyler Boyd, I've been saying it on Twitter for a little while. If you follow me, you can find me at DynastyDogMike. You can follow Rich at DynastyDogRich. Forgot to plug it at the beginning of the episode, but this is how we do here. We suck at intros. So Tyler Boyd is a very sneaky buy this offseason as a late third. Obviously, he's a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth, but the dude's been a very productive slot wide receiver and an offense that he's familiar with. Brian Callahan was the offense coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, for years while Tyler Boyd was there. So it wouldn't shock me if Tyler Boyd's like a little sneaky this year. Obviously not like high-end talent, but just a, back-end wide receiver 3 finish isn't out of the realm.
I think he's like the Kirk Cousins of wide receivers, or like Jared Goff of the wide. Like, obviously not going to get. They obviously being quarterbacks get you more. They'll always give you 20. I think he can give you like a solid 11, 12 every game. 10, 11, 12.
I was going to say 10. I feel pretty safe.
Like double digits. I think he can give you double digits every game.
If Will Levis can hit his peak, I think he could give you 10 to 12 safely. There's going to be some dud weeks because obviously DeAndre Hopkins, when healthy, is going to take over games, and Calvin Ridley can take over games, and then they have 2 running backs. But Tyler Boyd could be just a very interesting flex option, every now and again, depending. So I feel pretty confident with that. Last bit of news I have, and as Eagles fans, I think we have to kind of agree with this slightly. Brandon Cooks says the amount of criticism on Dak Prescott is blasphemous. I will say the dude does get a little bit more shit on than, obviously as Eagles fans, we do it, but the dude's better than I think we give him credit for. Obviously his playoff appearances have never been positive, obviously. And, part of that, I think Mike McCarthy is not the greatest coach in the world.
Right. He's fucking awful.
Yeah. So do you agree? Do you think maybe there's a little bit too much hate for Dak Prescott? In fantasy even as well?
I think in fantasy, yeah. In like regular quarterback, not really. Fantasy, like in a lot of the redrafts I did, he went like, it was almost like people were forced to take him. Like if you print out the top 300 players or whatever it is, he's in the first column. I forgot what he was ranked, but it was like through like 5, 6, 7, like almost 9 rounds where I'm like, is he going to go? Like you look at every name scratched off on there as you go down the first column of top 100 on that, and he's like, he's still there. So it's like, oh, but so I think he does get kind of shit on because I think he can give you a solid 26, 27. Yeah. So yeah, in fantasy, I do believe he's kind of shit on and kind of skipped over because of, I guess, the way he performs late in the season. would be my guess. But in regular season, no. He's a first round exit every year. He comes up small every year. That's the Dallas. Dallas quarterbacks have been like that since after Aikman.
For Aikman, yeah.
Yeah. So that you had Tony Romo who came up small. You got Dak who comes up small. So until he proves it, which I don't see that happening. No, I think it's fair.
Yeah, I also for fantasy I agree with you because he's pretty much a top 10 guy in fantasy, just in points scored. But I do kind of agree. I do think the Cowboys should pay him, believe it or not. I think they should probably move on from Mike McCarthy. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I do think they CeeDee Lamb, and that's it. Jake Ferguson's very solid. Kind of like Dalton Schultz was, just a guy who's not a difference maker, but he's going to make some plays. They don't have anything else. Like that running back room does not scare me at all. The offensive line is good. Brandon Cooks is okay. He's older. So it'd be very interesting to see what this team looks like. And I still think Dak's a solid piece to a fantasy team. I just don't know what he looks like next year because he might not be a Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah.
Like, could you see
I don't know where I could see him going.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
I was just thinking Cleveland if Matthew Stafford decides to retire.
New York
is actually, that's a really, both of them. If Rodgers decides to go or the Giants decide to get, or, the Giants decide to move on from Daniel Jones, I think that's definite at this point. But yeah, I think he could be on the move next year, and it might actually be for the best for him, depending on where he ends up.
Yeah.
You want to get into tonight's game a little bit?
Yes, sir.
We finally made it, like we said. Week 1 starts tonight, Thursday night, and then believe it or not, we have a Friday night game too, which the Philadelphia Eagles are on, but that's amazing. The Baltimore Ravens are at Kansas City, and the Kansas City Chiefs are -3.5 point favorites. Hollywood Brown is not playing tonight, so I mean, he hasn't really been part of that team much, or at all. This is his first season, and it might be a slow start for him in regards to fantasy.
Yeah, he's missing, I think, the first 5.
I saw possibly week 2, probable
really?
week 3. Yeah, is what it was what I saw last night. Who do you got in this game? Who do you think wins?
I think it's going to be a shootout. Honestly, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think Kansas City pulls it out.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, I think they win. But I think it's going to be like a 31-28 type high-scoring game, back and forth. I know Baltimore's defense is good, but Kansas City's offense is really electric. I'm really excited to see Rashee Rice. Actually, I think he's going to take off. Hopefully, faster than his Corvette. We'll see.
That's a good one.
But, I'm pumped to see him.
I'm pumped to see that. I'm pumped to see Derrick Henry in Baltimore for the first time. I think that's and by the way, we have some players in the Dynasty Dog Duel for tonight that are playing, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm interested to see Derrick Henry his first time. I'm interested to see the workload Xavier Worthy gets without Hollywood Brown. And I'm interested to see how Zay Flowers is utilized, because he's a guy who I think is just a very solid wide receiver 2, 3 in fantasy, a very solid wide receiver in the NFL. He's going to get open. He's going to get you a lot of receptions. He's a nice number 2 outside of Mark Andrews, obviously, because the offense revolves around him and revolves at passing. But I do think this could be a very big game for Zay Flowers. What do you think today?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see the way they use him and how he kind of steps up and becomes, the number 1 guy there. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. In terms of fantasy points, I don't know. What do you think he could put up? Anywhere between?
I'm going to say I feel pretty safe with in PPR. Let's say that 14 to 16.
Okay.
Could be a very solid wide receiver 2 finish for him this week. Because I do think he's going to get somewhere in the rounds of like 6 to 8 receptions, probably 60, 70 yards. Maybe he adds in a TD and he goes over the points. They're going to have to throw it to keep up, obviously.
Right.
Like I know Derrick Henry is going to get his, and I do think he scores tonight. But I do think even whenever you play the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to be able to move the ball through the air.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that.
I have a bet in real quick if you want to hear it for tonight. I know you're still trying to figure out your FanDuel account. Having a little bit of issues over there.
Unreal. But I got it. I got it.
Oh, you did end up getting it?
Okay. Yeah.
I do have a Derrick Henry anytime TD. Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions, which I think that's just a lock. And over 45.5 receiving yards for Xavier Worthy, and I definitely think that's doable with his big playability and his, even if it's just getting open and making receptions. I think that's possible, and especially with no Hollywood Brown, I think that's major.
Right.
Have you put any bets in? Is anything jumping out to you?
I did. So I put in Derrick Henry and Travis Kelce for any times, and then I got Mahomes over. Yeah, I think I got Mahomes over 225.
Okay,
Travis.
Good. Okay. I was going to say something about that. Go ahead.
Travis over 40. Rashee Rice over 40. Zay Flowers over 40. Pacheco over 2 receptions. So $10 wins me 172 with a profit boost.
Yeah, I forgot to put the profit boost on. I was talking to our buddy Mike earlier today, and he was talking about taking the over for Patrick Mahomes is 269 and a half. I believe it was.
It got bumped up to 271.
Did it?
So yeah.
Right, so the only that one gave me a little bit of pause. Is like the last time they played, Patrick Mahomes passed for 240, and the average passing yards the Ravens gave up last year was about 190 passing yards a game. So
yeah, I think especially the first game, I'm not going almost 300, dude. Like
I think 250 to 260 is doable. Like when you get in the up 260s and 270s, I'm like, okay, maybe not. That's still kind of a really good defense.
Kind of a battle there, yeah.
So the players we have in regards to the Dynasty Dog Duel, Rich only has one player going tonight, and that is Derrick Henry. So we obviously both put a anytime TD on him. So pray for both of us, I guess. I have Mark Andrews, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce all going tonight. So it's 3 against 1. Obviously, that doesn't always mean anything. You know, some of these guys could end up throwing up duds for me. So, anybody else jump out to you for tonight that we maybe haven't mentioned? You know, mentions Rashee Rice. We mentioned Xavier Worthy. Obviously, Mahomes and Lamar. I don't think they need to be mentioned.
I'm kind of want to see what RB2 does in Kansas City.
Okay. Do you think it would be Carson Steele?
I don't know.
Which is a really cool football name, by the way.
Yeah, or is it James backwards Pirine? Who knows?
Oh god. People were freaking out about Pirine signing for Xavier Pacheco or Isaiah Pacheco. I was like, that the guy who couldn't make the Denver Broncos is giving you fear for Xavier, or I almost said it again. Isaiah Pacheco, like you don't deserve Pacheco. You could send him to me in any league that you have. But so you think Kansas City wins this one? I also agree with you. I think Kansas City wins this. This is a revenge game for Baltimore, though, so it wouldn't shock me if Baltimore pulls this one out.
Right.
After the losing in the playoff games in the playoff game last year. Let's get into our preview of this week's matchups. Rich, I asked you to bring 3 to the party tonight and tell me what you're looking at and why, and we'll let you lead it off.
Well, obviously the Eagles for obvious reasons. It's not too crazy. I'm looking forward to the Eagles game because it's the Eagles season and I'm, pumped up obviously for that. But the one that's not the Eagles I'm kind of looking forward to is Panthers versus Saints. At Saints minus 3.5. I'm intrigued to see year 2 of Bryce Young. I think, you're going to see early on what he's made of. Either if he's a dud or if he's a stud, who knows. And I'm also intrigued to see the weapons they drafted for him. I see how they use them. Sanders at tight end. I think he's their tight end 1. And then, of course, Xavier Legette, who is always fun to listen to. But well, let's see what he has on the field. So, yeah, it's either like you get last year's Bryce Young or you get someone who has vastly improved. So I think we'll see that early on.
Now, is this game in New Orleans? I forget if you mentioned that.
Oh no, I didn't. I gotta see.
Okay, I'll look
No,
that
I don't
up.
know if it's. I don't know.
I think that makes it a little bit more interesting. Obviously, in New Orleans is always tougher because it's in that dome.
Right.
Um, but I could see it's going to be. They drew a tough matchup week one. To be honest with you, I do want to see the second year of Bryce Young. I agree with you on that one. We need to see some improvement from him. If this, first of all, if this line can protect him, that's another huge part of
Yeah.
it. This game is in New Orleans, so that could be a little tough.
Okay.
Um, I am very excited to see Xavier Legette, like you mentioned. I want to see what he looks like going up against. Probably going to end up getting. No, Deontay Johnson probably will have Lattimore on him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what that wide receiver room looks like. And I'm interested to see while Jonathan Brooks is out, is it Chuba Hubbard or is it Miles Sanders?
Yeah.
I think right now it's Chuba Hubbard. Um, I don't know what happened to Miles after he left Philadelphia, but he kind of fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I like that matchup. It's a very interesting matchup, and it's an NFC South division rivalry right off the bat. So I like that. My first one might be a little bit of a surprise to you because this is not one maybe I think people care about too much, but it's the Raiders versus the Chargers. Chargers are 3.5-point favorites currently. Some of the main things I'm really looking forward to is Brock Bowers, obviously, his deployment in this offense, and what Michael Mayer's deployment in this offense looks like. Is Mayer going to be the tight end, and is Brock Bowers going to be the slot? That could be something I want to look forward to. I want to see what they do there. I want to see what this Harbaugh offense looks like with Justin Herbert, a very, very talented quarterback. I want to see what this wide receiver room is in the Chargers. Obviously, we both like Ladd McConkey quite a bit. Josh Palmer, a nice player, nothing crazy. And could Quentin Johnson turn around in year two? Probably not. But again, it seems to be like this is kind of a make or break year for him, obviously, but he's going to have his opportunity early on. I'm sure they're going to try to get him involved. The biggest thing is what their running backs look like to me.
Yeah.
With Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Vidal. I think, the Greg Roman offense, going back to his days in Baltimore, has always been running back by committee. I think all these guys are going to be involved in one way or another. Obviously, I think there's going to be one who has a few more carries than everybody else. I don't think it's going to be even Steven down the line, but I think everybody's going to be involved. This is a very, pretty decent dynasty relevant matchup to watch.
Yeah. You got a lot of young players.
A lot of young players, a lot of depth that we want to see if maybe we have something. You want to see J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, you're a big J.K. guy. I'm a big Gus Edwards and Vidal guy. And Ladd McConkey, obviously, like we mentioned. And is Herbert healthy? Can he plant that foot? Patellar plant, whatever the hell it's called.
Plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, whatever I just
propeller.
Yeah. His propeller is broken.
Propeller ice tits.
Who do you got in that game?
I got the Chargers. They got to be the Chargers.
Really?
Chargers? Yeah. What am I going to go, Raiders?
Wouldn't shock me if the Raiders pull that out.
With Minshew back there? Come on.
I mean, the Raiders, they were starting to make a little bit of a push at the end of the season last year, and they still have that dude Max Crosby on the defensive line who is a game breaker, and who knows what that offensive line, it should be improved with Joe Alt and Slater back. But, Max Crosby's going to get his no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think it's the Chargers too, man. But, it's one of those matchups where the Raiders could, win this and big somehow. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the Chargers are definitely still a work in progress. So let's get into your second game.
All right, my second game is Bears versus the Titans.
Oh, I have that one too. So let me.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, we could just go over it. We could share. Yeah. The Bears made major moves this offseason. That's obvious. Drafted Caleb Williams, who I wasn't too high on, obviously, as we know, as we went over in previous shows. But now that I was forcefully made to take him in our fantasy draft because some douche took my Marvin Harrison at 2 overall. So I have a vested interest in this now. I have to see what he's got. Now I'm all behind Caleb Williams. I'm all behind the
You're a
nail polish,
Calebsman?
dude. I'm behind the nail polish, dude. Um, but with the additions of Swift and Keenan Allen and the emergence of DJ Moore as a star in the league, I think this is going to be, a different Bears team that we're not used to seeing. I think this is the Bears of old, used to, the automatic W on the schedule. I don't think that's going to be what we're seeing. I'm not saying they're going to win, 13 games, but I think it's going to be interesting to see. Definitely, and I think they're going to be better than they were in years past. They're actually the favorite in this game, -3.5. So I think for
I had
me,
4.5 when I looked at FanDuel earlier. Did it change?
I got this off Bleacher Report
Okay.
earlier today, so they vary. But yeah, it says they had -3.5. So I think they got it pretty much right. I think the Bears win this one. Just because, dude, they're firepower. The emergence, like I said, of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, who catches a million targets when he's on the field. I think they pull this one out. What do you think?
He's hurt, by the way. He showed up questionable.
Of course he is.
So yeah, like I said, I had this one down too as well. I'm making an adjustment, so I got another one. But I'm really interested, besides Caleb Williams, because obviously he's the 101. He's the Patrick Mahomes-esque type quarterback. The plays that he can make are incredible. But again, I talked about it earlier. I'm very interested to see Will Levis year 2, what this offense looks like with Brian Callahan. And to be honest, the other biggest question on this offense is it Spears or Pollard? Because they're both listed as running back 1 on their depth chart. They're literally just right next to each other. There's no gap. There's no 2. I do think we will see Pollard used early on in the season more, but I do think Tajay Spears takes that job from him. To me, I think Tajay Spears is a better running back. I think you liked Tajay Spears quite a bit last year.
I did, but now that I traded for Pollard and Pollard's on Tennessee, I gotta switch my allegiances.
Yeah, I just think the difference maker that they're very similar players, but Tajay is just when I watched him, he just reminded me so much of LaShawn McCoy. Now, does that translate to the NFL? It has in bits and spurts. Last year, he was out snapping Derrick Henry at points last year. So, I mean, I think we're getting Spears at a discount in Dynasty, and it wouldn't shock me if he is the RB1 by the end of the season.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I'll go to my next one since you took that one from me. And this is one I probably should have had on here. It's the Houston Texans and Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, year 2 Stroud versus year 2 Anthony Richardson. Will Stroud live up to the hype that he had last year, coming off last year? Will Anthony Richardson be able to stay healthy? Will he be able to be a passer in the league? I do think people were kind of like overblowing what happened with that pick 6 in preseason. If you watch it back, there was a miscommunication between the two, between Kyle Granson and himself. Just you could tell by the body language of both of them. So this is going to be a very interesting game. I want to see the usage of the Houston Texans might actually be the biggest question mark of the wide receivers of this game. Is it going to be Tank Dell? That is Stroud's guy. Like every time Stroud has a chance to talk about anything, he mentions Tank Dell. If Stroud is talking about apples, somehow Tank Dell comes into conversation, which is awesome because, we both like Tank Dell. I was a big Dellsman. I have my computer's a Dell.
You listen to Adele?
Yeah. Hello from the other side. I want to see what they look like. Because Stephon Diggs was named the captain. I don't know how I feel about that. He's just gotten there, and I don't know.
Made a big impact, I guess.
I don't know, or he just yelled about it for.
I don't know. I think they're voted, aren't they? Are they voted by players?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think some teams it's voted, and sometimes coaches pick it. But I think majority vote it. But again, then I want to see the wide receivers in Indianapolis with Josh Downs. Is he healthy? Adonai Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Is he, as good as a lot of people think he is? I think he's very good. It's just he's got to stay focused. That's the biggest thing with him. This could be a really good matchup. Right now, it's 2.5 favorite to Houston. That makes me think
it's a close game.
That makes me think Indy wins it.
I think I'm going with Houston still.
You think so?
Yeah, I just think Anthony Richardson's got a lot to prove. Coming back from that injury, he hasn't played a lot.
Mhm.
So, and I think CJ Stroud kind of took off like a rocket. So it's either he continues or he comes back down to earth a little bit. But either way, I think that team is like a little bit better. I
Yeah,
think they pull it out.
Indy's defense is pretty good though, with DeForest
Mm-hmm.
Buckner, their linebacker who's from Philly, Zaire Franklin. Kenny Moore is a very good slot wide receiver or slot corner. It's going to be an interesting matchup. And I know Houston and Indy players have been taking a little bit of jabs at each other throughout the offseason. So it's going to could be get a little
chippy. Yeah.
Yeah. Big Zaire Franklin guy, by the way. I've seen some of his podcast stuff. He seems like a good dude. Let's get into your next one.
My first one was the Eagles, man.
Oh, all right. So I'll go into my last one then.
You just gave 4.
I gave 3. Because you took This is my third one. The last one I got is Rams versus Detroit. This one's in Detroit. The Rams are 3.5 point underdogs, which at home that actually seems, not at home, away that actually seems a little odd to me. 3.5 point. This is a revenge game for both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Matt Stafford, the former Detroit Lion quarterback, going up against his former team, Jared Goff, the original 101 pick from the Rams, going up against that. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. The Rams running back rotation has been a topic of conversation for the past few weeks. Kyron Williams was taking punt returns. Now Blake Corum's taking punt returns. The Rams are just fucking with us at this point.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they look like. And then the final thing I'm going to be watching is the uses of Jameson Williams, because that's been the biggest topic of conversation. Again, you and I are both not high on him. I don't think he has a role to play, but I don't think it's fantasy relevant role.
I don't think it's been defined yet. I don't think we really know what type of role he'll play. So we'll see.
I think it's that vertical threat to open the field up for guys like Laporta, St. Brown, and Jahmyr Gibbs, because I think, to me, he's the 4th pass catcher on that team.
Yeah, I could see that.
Would be the 3rd. And then the last thing is the usage of Puka Nacua versus Cooper Kupp. A lot of people are freaking out about Puka because of Kupp being back, but we saw Cooper be very relevant even with Cooper Kupp in the lineup. I don't think, obviously, we're not going to see that astronomical takeoff possibly that we saw last year with Puka, but we're still going to see a very good wide receiver. People are discounting him.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, I think he comes back down to earth with Cooper Kupp coming back in the lineup. And I think Cooper Kupp kind of takes off a little bit. I got him at a value in our redraft league, in the league that we're in. I think I got him in like the 5th round. So
yeah, could be pretty good.
Yeah.
Just he has to stay healthy too. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main thing.
Who do you think wins this one? I think it's Detroit. At home, Jared Goff is usually pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to take Detroit too.
So, all right, let's get into our award predictions for the end of the season. Let's start off with the comeback player of the year. Who do you got?
That's Scallywag, Aaron Rodgers. I can't stand him. That's pretty much known. He's a weirdo, but the league loves him for some reason.
True.
So, barring him running out with an American flag or being on peyote, I think he wins the comeback player of the year as long as he stays out there.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing at 40 years old. Is he going to be able to stay there? My pick for this is a guy you could get at plus 750, which is pretty good. Anthony Richardson, quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. If he can stay healthy, he could break fantasy and break, football if he can stay healthy. Pretty much a bigger Lamar Jackson is good for the soul. So we'll see what happens with him. I think he could definitely win it. If the Colts are a playoff team, I think he for sure, and he stays healthy, I think he wins it.
Okay.
Offensive Player of the Year. I'll go with this one. Originally, I had CMC, but there's been a little bit of injury scuttlebutt with him recently. That actually should have been in the news. I read that right before we came on. That he had or still dealing with that injury. They don't see it serious, but we'll see if he plays. So my Offensive Player of the Year right now is going to be Tyreek Hill, who is the favorite on FanDuel. I don't think there's a more explosive player in this league than Tyreek Hill.
Right.
CMC is the closest, but a guy that could get you close to, 1,700 yards a season is just insane.
Right. I went with Christian McCaffrey.
Again.
I think he's a maniac when he's on the field. What he just puts out there is just unreal. Just the health thing has to be obvious factor, but when he's on there, man, he's like minus 200 every week for an anytime touchdown. I think he was up to minus 250 last year. It's unreal what he can do out there. So I'm going to take him.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, with those two, you can't really go wrong, to be honest with you. Who is your Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I think it's going to be Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I have that too. I do have a dark horse, but let's talk about it.
I think he's set up for success. Like I had mentioned, all those guys that they kind of build around with him. I think he's kind of on the right track and almost fail proof. So I'm going with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, that's who I had too. FanDuel has him at plus 120. He's the favorite. Again, they have given him pretty much everything he could possibly want in an offense to make him successful. I do think, I actually was going to ask you this earlier. I forgot to ask it when we were talking about Caleb briefly. Do you think he passes the all-time passing yards for the Chicago Bears at 3,838 yards? Do you think he passes that his rookie season?
There's a possibility. I don't think so. I think he gets close though.
I think he passes it. I actually think he breaks the 4,000 yard passing season.
For my team, I hope so.
Like we said, dude, he's DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, who they're starting to hype up a little bit more. By the way, possibly go in and look at his over and under receiving yards for tomorrow. I think it was 45.5. Keenan Allen banged up. I think I'm going to throw a few shekels on that as well. But yeah, Caleb Williams to me is the favorite. My dark horse, though, and I don't think you'll agree with this, it's going to be Xavier Worthy. Kind of off the board. The reason why I say that is we've seen, obviously there's been some misses here, but we've seen Andy Reid get these speed guys involved extremely well and extremely heavily. The first one that comes to mind, other than Tyreek Hill, is Deshaun Jackson, who was 59 receptions, 2 TDs, and 900 some odd yards. Obviously, that's not Rookie of the Year numbers, but with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, and the Kansas City Chiefs, I think he could have a Deshaun Jackson plus type season ahead of him. I think part of the reason Deshaun didn't get involved as much as he was part of the return game. So obviously, when you're a returner, you're not going to be on the field as much in receiver. I don't think Worthy has to worry about that. And according to Deshaun, McNabb was a little jealous of him with a few things.
I've seen that.
I've seen that too. So I think if this offense hits its stride with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, Xavier Worthy could be a 1,000-yard plus receiver for his first season. And that would be crazy to think about.
I still think he is behind Rashee Rice, and I think the balls going to him are going to be too limited for him to get to 1,000 yards. So,
I mean, Deshaun hit it with 59 almost hit it with 59 receptions. He was 970 something. I forget. I had it written down, but I lost it.
Right.
I mean, that's what, one more play for Deshaun, and that's 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's my dark horse pick. I think I just might throw a few shekels on that. But let's get into our last two things here. We got the MVP. Who is it?
So my prediction, it came down to Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts. But I think Jalen Hurts pulls it out. Just the weapons we have.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. I think it's unreal what we have. And with the addition of Saquon, it's kind of like we don't have a fail. You know what I mean? Like everyone, we got Smitty out there, got AJ Brown. I think that sets him up pretty well.
So you can call us homers all you fucking want to if you're listening to this. But it's hard to argue the fact the offensive weapons that they have. He only really started to come down at the end of the season last year. He was hot in the beginning. He was a Super Bowl a MVP runner up the year prior. I think this offense takes a major step forward with Kellen Moore, right? Mm-hmm. And listen, I agree with you. I have him as my MVP choice as well.
Cool.
So yeah, I agree with you. What's your Super Bowl matchup?
Well, let's continue the homerism. I think it's a Super Bowl repeat, but the Eagles get the revenge against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I have the Eagles as well, but I also have
Baltimore,
the Ravens.
Okay,
Eagles-Ravens Super Bowl.
That was a fun one. Yeah, that was kind of where I was. It was down to the Chiefs-Ravens for me, but Patrick Mahomes cannot be denied.
Sure, it's hard to deny him, but I feel like eventually the Ravens got to get their revenge, right?
Yeah.
So, my dark horse, like we mentioned, was the Atlanta Falcons from the NFC. Do you have a dark horse team you could see doing it
for the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You said the Falcons dark horse of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, dark horse.
Dark, yes. Like really dark, like pitch black dark horse. Yeah. Probably Detroit.
That's a good one. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really call that a dark horse. That's a shade, a little bit. But I could see that for sure. That matchup, Eagles Detroit for the NFC Championship, would actually be like
that'd be a good game.
Yeah, it would. It would. Well, that'll do it for the Dynasty Dogs. You can find us on Twitter at Dynasty Dog Mike and Rich at Dynasty Dog Rich. We're always talking fantasy, all other sports. We're obviously starting a Philly pod that we're going to be recording right after this. So make sure you check that out. Rich, give them a little bit of update on that.
So we got our intro. We're waiting on our graphic. Graphic should be early next week. But yeah, Philly goggles coming soon.
Coming soon. And thankfully, the football season is finally here. I hope you guys enjoy the slate of games this weekend. And we'll be back to talk to you next week. Well, I will. Rich will not be here. We have a special guest coming on. So be on the lookout for that. And that'll be it for the Dynasty Dogs. We hope you got that dog in you. Have a good night.
Peace.